Hey guys, it's Windows 11 launch day, and so we thought we'd just run through some of the common questions we've been getting asked about Windows 11. So first up, will Windows 10 automatically upgrade to Windows 11 in October? The answer is no. Actually, it's entirely your choice when you want to upgrade to Windows 11. Do you have to upgrade to Windows 11? Well, again, no, not immediately. You will have to upgrade at some point, but Microsoft have made their commitment that actually Windows 10 is still supported right the way through until October 2025. So it's entirely up to you when you decide to do the upgrade. You don't have to do it straight away. It certainly won't be forced onto you. You can keep going right the way through to 2025, and it's absolutely supported. We've also been asked if you could upgrade from Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. Now, you can, there is a way to do that, and potentially, from some of the articles we've been seeing, it is potentially free to do that as well. Microsoft did have their free offer for you to be able to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and it looks like that is still in market. Now, of course, Microsoft reserved the right to remove it at any time, but potentially right now you could upgrade from Windows 7 or 8.1 right the way through to Windows 11. Couple of caveats to bear in mind. Firstly, I would have to say I'd be very surprised if your hardware meets the requirements for Windows 11. But secondly, also to know that it isn't just a simple upgrade process. You can't just go into Windows and just hit the upgrade button. You do have to do sort of a clean reinstall. So what I'd absolutely recommend that you do is go ahead and back up any important files, folders, settings, favorites, all that kind of stuff. And then you can go to the Microsoft website, get the media creation tool, and you can do a fresh install of Windows 11. So let's take a look at those hardware requirements. Firstly, let's look at Windows 10, and then we can see how Windows 11 compares back to Windows 10. With Windows 10, you needed a 1 GHz or faster processor, 1 gig of RAM for the 32-bit version, or 2 gig of RAM for the 64-bit version, and you needed at least 16 gig of storage. A graphics card, pretty much anything that supported DirectX 9 or later. Now, I've got to be honest, those specs are quite laughable, because if you tried to run Windows 10 on those specifications, you'd get nothing done. I've got to be really honest, you'd get nothing done at all. We've been running Windows 10 for quite some time now, and I can honestly say, without 8 gig of RAM, without a decent processor, without a nice fast SSD or an NVMe based drive, it's really, really slow. So bearing that in mind, let's go ahead and look at what they're saying for Windows 11. So Windows 11, again, they're talking about a 1 GHz or faster processor. Now, actually, they're talking about a 64-bit only processor here. So this is interesting. This has started one of the big changes, because you might think, okay, well, what about my old 32-bit applications? We'll come to that in a second. The processor also needs to be an 8th generation Intel or an AMD Zen 2 or higher. Now, this requirement is specifically because of the enhanced security that those vendors, Intel and AMD, started to build into their chips following the horrible instance that we had in 2018. So things like Spectre and Meltdown. As a result of those, we then started to change how the processors were constructed, the software that was in there, the firmware, and now we have these better, enhanced, more secure processors, and that's become a base requirement for Windows 11. We need 4 gig of RAM and storage, again, 64 gig or higher. The graphics card this time, anything which supports DirectX 12, okay, so that's just because we're moving on with the new versions of DirectX. And the firmware does need to support UEFI and be secure boot capable, okay? So that's an easy one to check. We'll come to how you can check if your machine matches those. The last one, and possibly the most contentious one, is that it also needs to have a TPM chip. Now, we have a whole other video on the TPM chip, so we're not going to go into that here, but just know that that's in the specifications. So let's just have a think about those 32-bit applications for a second. It's no problem at all, actually. We've had this since 16-bit going to 32-bit Windows, and now 32-bit going to 64-bit Windows. Those applications are going to run just fine. In fact, Windows runs an emulator called WoW64, and that runs 32-bit applications inside 64-bit Windows. So just know it isn't anything to worry about. Also, Microsoft do run the App Assure program. Now, that's their guarantee that any app that previously worked with Windows 7, 8.1 or 10 will work with Windows 11. Now, I have to say, again, these specs, as minimum specifications go, are really a bit of garbage. I think for us, our recommendation would be to make sure that your machine has at least 8 gig of RAM and a 256 gig drive that is either SSD or NVMe based. Absolutely, please don't think about running Windows 11 on a traditional spinning disk. Now, of course, you can absolutely go higher than these, but again, when we think about a bare minimum, we just can't agree with Microsoft Windows 11's base specifications. Okay, next up is how can you check if your PC is even capable to run Windows 11? Well, actually, there's a really easy tool called the Windows PC Health Check tool. Now, it's available from Microsoft. There'll be a link in the description, but you can see it here. Now, it's a really simple installation. It is literally click next, next, and finish to get through, and then once you've done, you'll launch the Windows PC Health Check, and it will tell you very clearly, I was going to say in black and white, but more in red and green, with ticks and crosses as to whether your machine is capable of running Windows 11. It will also check for you if you have a TPM chip and if you've got a supported processor, which is some of those two trickier issues. Next up, the question we get asked, of course, is how are you going to install Windows 11? Well, actually, this is really straightforward. If you're running Windows 10 today, all you're going to do is go to your Windows Update section, and at the top you'll see your usual recommended and optional updates. At the bottom, you'll see the Feature Update section. Now, we're actually very familiar with the Feature Update section here because we've seen it when we've gone from Windows, version 20H1 to 20H2. You can just go ahead and upgrade on the bottom of the screen. Now, I have to say, we did find the upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 to be quite a long process. So do bear in mind, it is going to take quite a bit of time, do quite a few reboots. We tested it most recently on a really nice Lenovo with an i7 processor, 16 gig of RAM and a nice fast SSD drive, and it still took a good 20 to 30 minutes to do that upgrade. So do put some time aside, but you know what? Based on your specs, your mileage may vary. And that's it. We will see you next time.